I still don't believe in myself to do the next thing. I'm the believe guy. Well, I
Right.
believe in myself to do this, but to do the next thing, that's the struggle. So it's a constant, how do I believe in myself to do the next big thing? Well, how do I then teach believe? Well, because I'm helping people get to where I'm at. I'm helping people do the things that I had to overcome, because 19-year-old Evan who struggled with everything to launch his business is a lot further behind than 42-year-old Evan who's sitting right here.
This is my reality. Here's the mistakes I made, here's the flaws that I have. This is just me. But I want to be this, but you got to take that first step. And I think people get so overwhelmed by the thought of how much they're going to have to do that they don't even start.
Yeah. And people take a decade to take the first step.
And I think that applies to all areas, physical, mental, spiritual, health, whatever. But every day you have to take a little step in each direction.
You're stuck in next step mode all the time. And I think that's normal. We'll go through these modes, we'll have exact clarity on what we want to do, and we go and we chase that down, and then it's not interesting anymore. And you may not know what you want to do next. And so now we got to experiment and try. And then you find the next thing, and then you go blinders and focus on that. Like, I don't think anybody wakes up and just does the same thing their entire life and loves it. Evan Tinsman, let's go, man. What do you got? Looking all fancy, I like it. Driving in from Pittsburgh to be here, we made it.
I told you I was going to get here one way or the other.
Yeah, I love it,
So,
dude. It's great.
I don't know, was it 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Yep.
What's interesting about being here was 5 years ago when I decided to stop drinking, get healthy, get sober, I was a stress drinker, so I didn't really know what to do. I just knew that I couldn't continue to watch and listen to what I was doing, politics and stuff like that. So I went to YouTube, and the first thing I could think, I didn't know of anybody to look for, so the first thing I did was I typed Tony Robbins. And I said for the first couple months, I was listening to the don't jump videos, like the rock bottom stuff. And as I was doing that, I see a yellow and black thumbnail. And then I see your name, I'm like, Evan, there's not a lot of us out there. Who is this guy?
Right, yeah, you got to
So then I was a little bit annoyed, like, right? Like I'm annoyed, like, no, I'm Evan. So then I started watching your content. I'm like, I know I'm older than this guy, And so I started watching your content, and I got into like your top 10s. And every morning I would start my day with it. And I would get up and I would read and I'd pray and I'd meditate and stretch, and then I would put on something of yours. And that's how I learned who a lot of these people are that now I follow and read books or whatever. And then it progressed from like the don't jump stuff to more of the personal development and whatever. And then you did your tour. And then I found you in Pittsburgh, and my whole objective was that snowy night, and I think it was January.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, and
So
I think when I walked up to you, I said, I'm not really here for anything other than to say thank you, because you had a big part in my sobriety journey, and you didn't even know it, because I relied heavily on the content that you made. And then saw you again in Cleveland, and then here we are today. But what's interesting is I found you from looking up at Tony Robbins, yet 2 weeks ago I was in Florida and finally got to see his event live, and then the message went out that you guys were doing this, and that's why I jumped on it. So I looked for him and found you, and then when I was down there watching him, it led me to come back and actually meet you up here. So It kind of came like full circle.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, So
what do you got? How can I help? What's on your mind? What's the next level?
I had a whole bunch of questions that I was going to ask you, and then what hit me in that conversation was, I think the biggest obstacle is, how does, and for me and for others, how does a person, for lack of better terms, a broken person, get over that to be able to help other people that might be when they themselves haven't healed yet? That's how I feel. Like, how do you, if you don't feel qualified to do it? I think that's been my biggest, I don't know what the word would be. That's been, I think, what's subconsciously been holding me back the most. I know I've been through a lot, I know that I have a story, I know that I've overcome a lot, but I'm not yet where I want to be. And there's a lot of things that I haven't forgiven myself for. So I feel like, because I haven't found that reconciliation, how do I help other people do what I have not been able to do to this point?
What a way to start. I love it, dude. So a couple things in there, and this is stuff that helped me. I don't know how prescriptive it is. You can take what works and leave what doesn't. For me, serving is part of the healing process. So for me to heal and get better, I need to be helping others, right? So you saw me on that tour. Pittsburgh was, if it wasn't our first stop, it was one of our first stops. It was number one, first stop. And then we went to Cleveland, the last stop. And you saw the difference in me. Cleveland, I had a broken neck. I don't know if you stuck away to the end like that. I was on the floor for 45 minutes just at the end because like I was gone. I gave everything. But we had a real decision when I had broken my neck. Like, do I keep going or go home? And everybody was saying go home. Like, it's crazy. You go home. Everybody would understand if you go home because you broke your neck, you have a concussion, all this. But for me, I would get more healing by being with people and helping them than me being on the couch at home just healing or feeling sorry for myself or whatever. And I had all sorts of, I was gaining lots of weight because I wasn't moving around. I had like this giant scab on my forehead. I wasn't thinking as clearly as I normally would be. The events were worse. Right, I didn't have the same energy. You saw me at the end in Cleveland, but I still didn't have as much energy there as I did in Pittsburgh when I first started because I wasn't moving around. I'm sitting there for 4 hours with ice packs on me, but that became part of my healing process. So for me, I actually healed more by being with people and sitting with them and helping them than by me being by myself. I haven't gone through any serious depression, or I haven't wanted to commit suicide and some of the things that you've talked about. But one of my favorite expressions, I forget who said it, was like, "Don't suffer alone." Like when you're alone, when you're suffering, just don't be alone. Reach out to somebody, have a community, have a group, have a friend, so you're not by yourself because you can do stupid things when you're by yourself when you're really in really dark places, and you pulled yourself off the edge, in there, which is amazing, but a lot of people don't. You're never fully healed, I don't think. But you gain more healing as you continue to help people. At least that's what I tell myself and what I find works for me. For the whole imposter syndrome thing, and I don't know if I'm good enough because I haven't fully solved it. Well, you can't help people with something that you haven't fixed. But Evan Tinsman today compared to Evan Tinsman 5 years ago, right? The weight difference, the gun to your head, the alcoholism, you're an impossibility to him. Right? Like Evan Tinsman from 5 years ago would look at this guy and say, you ran an Ironman, you're doing these events, like there's no way you would believe of what you actually become, right? Like if you showed yourself a picture of a 5-year-old you, right? You're like, there's no way, I'm not gonna do that. There's no way I can be that guy, and yet you've done it. So you're already an impossibility to who you used to be. So you can teach people to get out of that hole. Like the things that you haven't solved yet, cool, that's your ongoing journey. You're never done I'm never done healing and learning and growing and improving to the next step. But everything that you've done, which is a lot, you've done the hardest work. That's where most people are stuck. They're stuck at step 0. You can help them get to step 20 because you're at step 21, right? You're not at step 8,000, cool. Like you learn and you're growing. But the goal isn't to help people with things that you should feel like an imposter if you're trying to teach people to do something that you haven't done. Like I can't help somebody who's in depression. I can listen, I can have empathy, I can hold space for them, but I can't say you should go and do this because I haven't been there. So I should feel like an imposter telling somebody how to get out of depression or suicide or any of those things. But lack of belief, I've been there. Like massive physical pain, I've been there. So I can help people through the things that I've been through. So the goal becomes to go through more things, experience more, so you can then go and teach and serve and help. But you have tons to share. Like, I think back to Pittsburgh when you came, there was the event, but then we had the 3 people afterwards, and you're one of the 3 people who came the next day. And you spent most of your time helping everybody else. Even on your time, like, Evan, how can we help you? You still turned it into how you can help the other people who are there, right? Which is great. You got a huge heart. It's amazing. But you definitely have a ton to share. And don't pretend to share things that you don't know how to share and serve because you haven't gone through it. But most of what you've been through is that's the hardest step. People who are going to AA programs or any of those things, they would be super inspired by what you've done.
Yeah, the community piece, that's another challenge that I've been dealing with. I've kind of befriended some people, and when I did it, I kind of white knuckled it. I did it myself. I mean, I had a good therapist, I got professional help from medication, but I didn't do group stuff. I didn't do the steps in AA and whatever. And
Because it didn't work for you? Or
It
you just never
was,
tried it?
Well, I didn't try it. I didn't go that path. Initially, it was, I think, just kind of being ashamed of it, not wanting to be public, having a business. You know, small town, everybody kind of knows me, and I found a path that worked for me. But I also realized that that hurt me because I've become friends with a lot of people that went the other direction. They have huge community, and they're always with people and around people. And I found the way I went, more of the one-on-one with my own therapist, whatever, that as good as that was, I never got to actually build or be part of a community. You know, so then I kind of feel like, well, at this point to go out, I don't even know where to go from that starting point. So now it's kind of changing a little bit, getting to know people, but realizing that the way I went was kind of an anomaly. And it's hard to connect to the other people that have gone the other direction. So when I've gone through it myself, from the individual standpoint, not realizing how rare or difficult that is to do, and I'm very fortunate I was able to do that. Well, then to go out and take that to other people too, it kind of contradicts. You know, there's two worlds there.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think somebody who's already come out on the other side and they found AA or group or community work as a thing that helped them, cool. It doesn't mean that you can't connect with them. You just may not be able to connect with them on the solution.
Right.
But in terms of the pain that they went through, you can connect with them. What led them to be in that group in the first place? What led them to alcoholism? You can share stories about stress drinking and everything that has led you. Maybe you have an even darker story than what they had. Maybe, I don't know. But you can still connect with them on those things. You may not connect with how they got out of it, but there's still lots of connection points if you want. Even now, I don't know how you feel now about, where you're struggling, or if you still think about having a drink every now and then, or when it's super stressful, you're like anxiety to the max. Does this thought still come up that I want to go get a drink? Like, does that still pop up?
For the most part, I'm good.
Good.
And it's good in the areas where I know it's going to be there. Like if I'm going out to eat or going on vacation, like it's going to be there. But I actually had an incident happen about a month ago. I was in Detroit for a business trip, and we ended up going into like a social event, which didn't realize was going to happen, and it was just social, like hors d'oeuvres and whatever, and they had a bar set up, and that really got me because back in my corporate America days, that's how like you mingle, you socialize, you get to know people, you network, and that was an environment that I thrived in. And that's the first time in my 5 years that I found myself in that scenario. Like, it's going to be in a restaurant. It's going to be at a friend's house. It's going to be on vacation. I did not know it was going to be on that business trip. And I found myself in an environment for the first time in 5 years where I really enjoyed being, to the point that, the friend that I was with, he looked at me, he's like, do we need to leave? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. So yeah, it made me realize how fragile it is, or how fragile I am, that there is that slippery slope, and having an addictive personality, there's healthy addictions, but that can also be unhealthy, because if you obsess too much, whether it's trying to do an Ironman or I've taken up skydiving or different things like that, it can become unhealthy too. So I guess it's kind of like, instead of chasing that dopamine, now I try to find it in the process. But it's where I feel I can control that process. So like in doing a triathlon, I say in the past, the old Evan would have been chasing the medal as the shiny object, full well knowing it wasn't going to give me the dopamine that I needed. So then you look for the next dopamine hit. But you expect that now that I'm healthy, and I work with my therapist with it, like I know that this is going to happen, so I consciously tried to enjoy the process. The growth was in the process. I mean, I had breakdowns, and there were moments that I was just pushing myself so hard that out of nowhere I had these emotional outbursts where I would just start crying, like on my bike and on my runs, and it was emotion. So I said the growth was in the process. The medal just proved I did the work. So you can anticipate that. That scenario where I walked into a room, I was blindsided. There was no preparation, there was no anticipation, and then all of a sudden, like, it's right there. So that struggle is there. But it can also be on the healthy side too, because if you have that I crashed after, not literally, like after I finished my race, the next day I was like, well, what now? The training's done.
Yeah.
So then you start looking. And in the triathlon world, they say the only way you can overcome that is you have to sign up for your next race. And from an addiction standpoint, you have to keep doing what you're doing until you find something to replace it. Because otherwise, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards because there is no status quo. Especially with addiction, because you're looking for external things to fill internal voids. And the external things are never going to give you what you want. But from a healthy standpoint, you want it to keep moving you in the right direction.
Are you struggling more with, because we've touched on two topics. One is like community and connection to people. And the other is serving and, not feeling good enough or having progressed enough to serve and help people. What's more important to you right now? Is like finding the community and connection to people, or taking what you've been through and serving others?
It would be to help people from either making the mistakes I did or showing them how to put the pieces back together after. I can't help you in the middle because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a professional in that sense. So if I can derail somebody from hitting that rock bottom, but that's kind of hard to do if you're already on that downslide, for someone to kind of step in. Sometimes you have to hit that rock bottom.
But you're more concerned with serving and helping people than you finding a community and connecting?
Of course.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. For me, it's on the other side. I kind of stick to the line of like, you're never too old and it's never too late to start over. And even though I struggle with that internally being 47 years old, I was 37 when I started, 42 when I hit my rock bottom, and pretty much had to rebuild every part of my life. And so fast forward, life is good, but it's hard for me not to regret losing the 5 years. I feel like I lost 5 years of my life and trying to make up for it. And then I do have those days where I'm like, oh, well, you're 47. Statistically, life is half like you're too old, or, I have that internal battle. And then I go back, and I think it was a conversation we had where I said, it's about your next step. And you actually put the idea, and you said, no, it's about your first step. So I've really stuck with that. And I've kind of taken the approach of like, not your first step in terms of like the program of recovery, but where you are to where you want to go. No matter what it is each day, you have to take your first step, whether it's financial, relationship, spiritual, physical, whatever. But it starts with the point of status of like, well, you have to be honest and true to yourself that like, well, this is my reality. Here's the mistakes I made. Here's the flaws that I have. This is just me. But I want to be this, but you got to take that first step. And I think people get so overwhelmed by the thought of how much they're going to have to do that they don't even start.
Yeah. People take a decade to take the first step.
Right. And that's where, and I think that applies to all areas, physical, mental, spiritual, health, whatever. But every day you have to put a little, take a little step in each direction, and that's where I believe people get lost in that. So from my standpoint, I did go all in. I was so desperate to financials. I would have done anything, tried anything, because I did not decide that I wanted to get sober. I decided that I didn't want to die. I decided that I wanted to live. And I try to take each day like that, just max out and take advantage and try new things and drive to Canada on a whim.
Let's go.
But that does change day to day of what you have to do. And I think that's where people get overwhelmed with it. And I think that's where I can help of like, it's okay to have all of these areas that are a mess if you just put a little bit of water in each bucket each day. You can't go all in on one because you're going to waste it. And that is difficult when you have to fix your money, fix your relationships, fix your health, fix your depression, your anxiety, deal with the demons that kind of put you there in the first place. And I think that's what's haunted me the most. Like, I haven't reconciled that. I still fight those demons throughout life, and some of them I'm just not public about because it doesn't need to be. And I think that is where that insecurity comes from of like, you want to help other people, but you're not sure how to help other people because you haven't yet figured out those internal struggles that are bothering you the most.
Well, hold on. That's what's bothering me the most right now. But Evan from 5 years ago was dealing with different demons. Like, you don't have the demon hounding you every day saying, I want to kill myself. That existed 5 years ago. Maybe not every day, but that was there. Like that demon might even be bigger than whatever you're dealing with right now. And you you may not have like 100% killed it, but like 99.9%, the days you're not waking up saying, I'm going to kill myself today.
Yeah. That was to clarify, that was one day. And it was that rock bottom moment. And for anybody that is dealing with that, it's a depression thing. It's not the person, it's the influence of the substance. It just kind of wears you down to the point that you don't think logically or rationally. And then,
But you, for the most part, beat that demon.
yeah, it's so to that extent, absolutely.
Like that's the point. Like if you're in the first step business, you don't have to take people all the way. You can help people get the first step to beat that demon.
Right.
Whatever demons you're still facing now, if you want to share them and make them public and that's part of your journey and then you can help other people through those too, cool. And when you conquer those ones, there'll be other demons that show up or a bigger version of it, right? Like me, I still don't believe in myself to do the next thing. I'm the believe guy. Well,
Right.
I believe in myself to do this,
Right.
but to do the next thing, that's the struggle. So it's a constant, how do I believe in myself to do the next big thing? And it's being able to marry, well, how do I then teach belief? Well, because I'm helping people get to where I'm at. I'm helping people do the things that I had to overcome because 19-year-old Evan who struggled with everything to launch his business is a lot further behind than 42-year-old Evan who's sitting right here. So you can help people. Just the demons that you're facing right now, you can't help people through. I mean, I don't know what it is, and it's fine. You don't have to share.
I can tell you, it's self-acceptance, and it's self-forgiveness. It's the right now for me, it's the inability to reconcile some of the things I did in my past and some of the people that I hurt to where I'm at now. And I don't know if that's about guilt or shame. And I know those are two very different things.
Yeah, but you already have more self-acceptance now than you did 5 years ago.
Of course. But I don't know if it's to the point that I feel, and I know, I mean, we've talked about this of being able to go out and to help and to share that message and get that message out there. You know, knowing and doing are two different things. You know, so it's kind of like, I know the logical side of it, but to actually implement and do it, I guess is different.
It's connecting emotionally back to old Evan.
And then I do have the practical side of like, how do I get it out there? And that's, you know, something I need to figure out, the ways to get it out there to where people would hear it on the scale that I would like it to be. Like local community, I've helped some people, which I'm thankful for, but to get the message out there more.
Until the why is figured out, the how doesn't matter, right?
Right.
You have the best strategies, but unless you're emotionally committed to it, like if
Right.
you're feeling like you don't have a good enough story to share, or who am I'm still fighting these demons, then you can have the best hows, but you're not going to do anything.
Right.
So you're right now struggling as Evan Tinsman in the next step. You're in the next step business, and not even like the next step. You're like the next step. You're in like step 20 to figure out self-acceptance. And I don't know that anybody ever has the Dalai Lama figured out self-acceptance? I don't know. Like, do you ever figure it out? I don't know.
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not.
Like, I haven't figured it out. You know, I'm better than I used to be, and that's the goal. And I want to get even better, and maybe somebody helps unlock, or the right video or book or mentor or whatever experience, but you're never fully done. And you never want to be fully done. Like, that's part of the growth journey. So if nobody ever figures it out, then imagine if Tony never taught because he didn't have, and maybe still doesn't have full self-acceptance.
That probably plays into an addictive personality where you're always chasing the next, or it's not enough, or you don't feel good enough. You know, I would imagine it falls into that, you know, that constant chase of dopamine, of wanting better. And it does, it goes to that, you know, external things to fill internal voids. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, I've often wondered, like, well, even me being public about my sobriety and trying the weight loss, the trainings, anything that I do, I think it's putting it out there forces me to hold myself to a higher standard because I don't want to fail in front of other people. Where I know some people want to keep it very private, you know, whatever works for you. And then part of it is I am trying to convey that message of like, well, yeah, I have lost 72 pounds. Yeah, my first goal when I got healthy was like, I'd really like to run a 5K because I've never done that. And now, you know, doing Ironman triathlons and training to do more. So it's the example, but I don't know if I'm doing it more for myself or for other people or both. If it's a combination.
It's definitely both. Like you never, I forget what, he just came back from Tony, so he's got his 6 human desires. There's 8 human desires.
Security, insecurity.
And then like the highest level is,
right.
What are the highest 2?
I don't remember.
You just came with the event.
It was 4 days.
Anyway, like ultimately it becomes about service to others, but you're never fully there, right? Like there's always, I think there's both. Like if you can tell yourself that running this marathon is going to serve other people, and I can show people, like Evan Tinsman from 5 years ago wouldn't have run down the driveway, and now he's out doing a triathlon, right? That it could be of service and helping people, and it's also a personal ego, self-confidence, like prove to myself that I can do it, chasing the next high, growing, learning. Like you're not going to be the guy who just sits on a couch and just accepts his life and does the same thing for the next 40 years of your life. Like you'll hate your life. You have to be learning and growing and progressing and doing something. And I think even the people who are the most like altruistic for the people, there's still I love helping people. It's great. I want to serve the world. And is the ego selfish? Like I love having my YouTube plaque, and I love, like doing the things that, like it's nice, it's great. Yeah. So I don't think you ever get to 100%. Maybe the Dalai Lama's figured it out, or some monk has figured it out, I don't know. But I wouldn't hold it, like unless I can be 100% here, then I'm not going to start and do anything. Right? Like you took a unique approach. AA didn't work for you. Cool. There are other people who could learn from that, who like feel they don't have a path because AA doesn't feel right. For all the same reasons it didn't feel right for you. I have a business, I'm known, whatever, right? And so you don't have to be prescriptive to say this is what you must do. You're sharing your story and say, here's what worked for me. What worked for me is a sound therapist. So I still did the work, but it was with one person instead of with a group. And I could afford to have a therapist. Maybe people can't. You became very regimented, and like you wake up and you have your routine, and you do your journaling, and you have your process that you go through, and that schedule helped keep you on the path, right? So again, you can share what is your schedule. The most common question I get asked often is, what's my morning routine? People want to emulate schedules. I'm like, well, don't use my exact one. But even anybody, if you think back to Evan from 5 years ago, any kind of morning routine that doesn't involve waking up and drinking is a good thing.
Right. And I don't do that morning routine because in hindsight, I'm like, that's what I had to do though.
Yeah.
It was 3.5, 4 hours before I even started my day. I was up 3:30, 4 in the morning until 7:30. But because I was really triggered by stress, I had to do that, start training my brain to be able to handle stress, to be in a better state of mind to go through my days.
But that's the first step. Like when you break your leg, you have crutches and a cast.
Right.
And ultimately you lose the cast and the crutches. Hopefully you learn how to walk.
Right.
So that was your crutch or your cast to get you through that period.
And as that time got less and I didn't have to, now it was only maybe 1 hour, a half hour, and I could get my meditation or whatever done. Well, that still leaves that void of like, well, I should be or could be doing something, or am I, it's that fear of going backwards. Like I should be doing more, I need to be doing more. And I think that's why the training regimen and getting a coach for right now, it appeals to me, from the sports, the triathlon stuff. And I realized that until I replace it, I have to keep doing it. That also gives me a release too, because like my businesses are going well and growing and I'm pretty good at it. But deep down inside, I know it's not what I really want to be doing, but I have to do it, and then finding that balance of how do you get that message out, even though the casual ways I'm putting it out is generating business because people follow the story and then they'll say, oh, I didn't realize you did that. Can you help me with this? So it does work, but on a small local scale, so it's about, I take all this time from a daily work business standpoint, trying to figure out how do I separate it to get it on its own, and I think that's kind of where it stalled for me.
It's still just the belief that the message is worth sharing and that you're a worthy messenger. You're constantly, like I still love the first step, next step, because you're stuck in next step mode all the time for yourself. And I think that's normal. Like we'll go through these modes that we'll have exact clarity on what we want to do, and we go and we chase that down, and then it's not interesting anymore, and you may not know what you want to do next.
Right.
And so now we got to experiment and try, and then you find the next thing, and then you go blinders and focus on that. Like I don't think anybody wakes up and just does the same thing their entire life and loves it. So you're constantly stressed out about, maybe
Or
not
they
stressed out
or
is the
they
right
do
word.
continue to do it and end up an alcoholic
Alcoholic,
because they're not fulfilled.
yeah, drug addict, like
Yeah, right.
suicide, like it leads
Yeah.
to really negative paths. So there are moments when you had the clarity, you had your triathlon, clarity. I'm getting the triathlon done. It serves the benefit also you getting healthier, but it's a nice shiny thing to go out and chase down. Cool, now you did it. Okay, well now what?
Right.
So but that's normal. You know, like it's normal to then figure out, okay, well what's my next step? I don't know what I want to do. So you go through these periods where you have to explore and try a bunch of stuff and see what ends up sticking, and then you'll find the next thing and you go off. I think that's normal. It may be more, you know, for an addictive personality that like you need that next thing, but it's still the next step. Like you're on step 20 and you figure out the next step, but you can't let that prevent you from helping people with the first step.
Right.
Because all the things that you went through was teachable and is practical and valuable, and people who don't feel like they fit in AA, you're given an alternative. You're not saying AA sucks. You're not
Right.
saying AA doesn't work.
Right.
It just didn't work for you, or who you were then, you weren't ready for it, for
Right.
all of these reasons.
Right.
Cool. There's lots of people who are like that too.
Right.
And where are they going to go? Who are they turning to? What resources? Maybe they know Tony Robbins and they happen to go to YouTube and search, right? But maybe not. And maybe they stay stuck, or maybe something really, worse happens.
Right.
Your story could be the first step for them to say, here's what happened for me. I watched some videos. I didn't want to go to a group, but I knew I needed to not die. And so videos started to help me. And then I created a really regimented morning routine, because if I didn't have that down, then I would be stuck. And now I don't need to have as regimented. It doesn't take me 4 hours every day. I can do it in less. Cool. But it's not where you are now and what your schedule is now. Like Evan from 5 years ago could not handle what you're doing now.
Right.
So that's not what you're trying to teach. You teach the first step.
If I could convey anything, it really is you're never too old and it's never too late, in that you can rebuild, you can come out the other side of it. You have to, I guess have the goals and the visions and the dreams, but keep them there and realize that you have to do today. It's scary and it's hard. And there was a lot of times that I did want to quit, and I did want to give up, and I didn't want to keep going in different areas. And I see so many people, they say they want to do it, or they start and then they stop and then they fail, and then you'll see them go right back to where they were. And that is what I think that's what gets me the most, is because I know you can do it. I know that it's possible. I'm proof that it's possible. And then I see people that try one or two things and then they fail. It breaks my heart to actually see it, But when I was in the midst of it, you do feel hopeless. You feel helpless. There's just, everybody's rock bottom, they would say, is the worst. You weren't as bad as me, or that whole comparison. And knowing what it's like, if I could do anything, it would be to stop people from getting to that moment. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people have to get to that moment. So my thought is, if I could help people from the rebuilding stage, it might be enough for the person that's on that downslide to say, well, I don't want to get to where he did or whatever, enough to have some self-awareness for them to make the decision to try to seek help. Because I don't think me talking to somebody, to just talk to somebody, isn't going to stop them from hitting that low. But by seeing the other side of it, it might be enough for them to want to not continue on that downward slide. So I think the opportunity is coming out the other side, showing that growth in the different areas, but it still comes down to that internal conflict of well, I'm not yet where I want to be, so who am I to tell you what you need to do to become who you want to be? And I do understand that logical side of growth is a never-ending process. So part of me, kind of feels a little bit hypocritical of do as I say, not as I've not been able to do.
But you don't need to tell anybody what to do.
Right.
You don't have to tell them anything. You can first off hold space and listen, and you're a great listener. People tell you things that they may not tell other people, because you listen and you don't judge them, and you don't say, oh, you did that, oh my God. You are open and accepting, and people, I'm sure, tell you things that they haven't told their spouses or anybody else in their life. Already that is value. Just having somebody to talk to who's not judging them for what they're going through is already tremendous value. Then when you're helping, you don't even have to say, well, you need to go do this, this, this. All you have to do is share your story of what worked for you. And then it's up to them if they want to take the advice or not.
Right.
So you don't have to be, like when I said, hey, this isn't prescriptive, but here's what worked for me. It gives an inspiration and hope, and maybe that works for you and you run with it, or maybe you take a piece of it and tweak and go do something else. But you don't have to worry about being like, you need to go do this and hold yourself to that perfect standard because maybe you gave the wrong advice. Like, no, I'm sharing my story. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. Here's what worked for me. And these other things didn't. And maybe it'll work for you. And you're always in your truth because you're just sharing your story and what helped. And trying to tell the best story that most relates to the person that's in front of you. I think for you, honestly, like you thrive when you're with people. And when you're just by yourself for too long, thinking about content, you overthink it and like, how am I going to do it? And then nothing happens. And then like the occasional Instagram post or something. And like nothing happens. So it's like, and who am I? But like if you were actually helping people and you see that by having a conversation with you, even if you weren't able to give a specific piece of advice, they just leave more hopeful now because you talked to them and you listened to them and you understood them. I think that's what will help keep whether it's the dopamine ongoing or just the belief or the motivation that this thing has something. Because I met you, 3 years ago? When was Pittsburgh?
3 years ago.
And you're still the same guy of like helping and caring and kind and trying to listen and always bring value to the people, but it's never turned into, it's like these little start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. And I think the missing piece hasn't been the how, it's been there's a lack of connection to people. You don't see it working. Like when somebody sends you $100 because your Instagram post changed their life or whatever.
You remembered that?
Right? It's like, it's a great win, right? But like there's not enough of them. There's not enough of it happening ongoing. But if that was happening every day, not that it's a revenue model, I have $100, but...
But that wasn't for me. It was a pay it forward to find someone in the community to give it to. So just...
But it's as
right,
a
I don't want you
result
to think
of
like I wasn't mine. Yeah.
But whatever. Like,
yeah.
As a result of you posted something that became, so you became a part of their journey.
Right.
Kind of like I was for you with the videos. I didn't know who you were. Like you may not have had a deep personal connection with this person, but they loved your content and decided, hey, here's $100. Do something with it. Pay it forward. Awesome. Like if that stuff was happening more regularly, or you like could meet somebody in person and help them. Like for me, I love this more than making videos by myself at home in my studio, pressing record. Even though those are easier to make, this is more fun because
interaction.
You get to see like you're helping somebody.
Right.
I think that's the biggest missing piece for you is you don't see enough when you come to an event like this, or I'm sure at Tony's event, you're like helping all the people around you. Maybe I would bet that somebody got more value at Tony's event by being with you than by listening to what Tony said. Just from who you are. Maybe whether you would accept that or not, I'm sure like that happened. And so it's, okay, how do you create a system then where you are around that more consistently?
Right.
So you can feel the results, the impact of the work that you're doing, not on because you got a 2,000 views on a video. It doesn't hit the same dopamine rush as somebody saying, Evan, dude, you changed my life, thank you.
Right.
I think that's been the biggest missing thing over the past 3 years is you just don't feel enough of the connection to the work.
Right.
And then you just get in your head and
what's the point?
Overthinking, and I could do this and that and this and that, and then nothing happens because the business always takes priority and is paying the bills, and you get connection to the company and the meeting the people, and you end up helping people in your business, in their life.
Where the dichotomy is, and it took me a long time, I actually figured this out with my therapist, is for years, and people with addiction, usually you try to get that fulfillment, the dopamine, external things. I always chased the result, whether it was money, it was the car, it was the whatever. And, but you can figure out what that it is, and based on your own numbers and performance and how you do your job, you can reverse engineer the numbers of like what you need to do, how many people I need to talk to, how many do you have to pitch, how many do you have to close, what's the average sale gonna be. You can reverse engineer the numbers to get to your goal. Mm-hmm. And I'm very good at that. But I never had fulfillment from that. And I found that in hindsight that I don't know who says it, but it's a great, I don't know whose it was, but it's, you know, we tend to work to our quota, not to our potential.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, even hitting my quota was still, most of the times was still better than everybody else around me.
Sure.
You hit a quota and you're at the top and you feel great about that, but deep down inside, you know you have more in you.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing more to try to get to your potential, you could fail. And if you do that, you're gonna fail big in front of everybody. So you're gonna go from being the best to failing in front of people. That's why I loved the Ironman, because it was, and I was public about it, or the half Ironman. I'm gonna do the full Ironman this year. That I was putting myself out there that like, I can't, if I don't finish, everybody will see it. But if I do finish, I will know that I went to my potential, not just a quota. I could have went and did a shorter event, which is more than what most people did, and beat my chest for it. But inside, I knew I would have more. When I finished this half, when I was done, it was hard, but it wasn't that hard. I knew I had more, so I'm like, I have to do a full. So, from that corporate America job, shiny object, reverse engineer numbers, never gave me the fulfillment. But now I find myself shifting, and this is what I talk to my therapist about. I'm finding myself drawn more towards the thought leadership world, wanting to help people, where you're dealing with emotions and vulnerability, which is not something I've been really good at, because throughout my life I've been very closed off, not letting people in. Just it's a self-preservation or self-defense mechanism, whatever. And but to be in this space, you don't know what the final product is you're trying to get, because if it's an internal fulfillment, if it's a feeling, you can't quantify that. And if you can't quantify it, you can't reverse engineer it. So my mind is wired numbers, but like my heart is going more towards the helping and serving, but you can't map that out to break down steps. So it's like a dichotomy.
I hear you, but you kind of can, in that the feeling of fulfillment that you're chasing. How many times when you've been in a room with a lot of people, or just with one person that you've helped, do you leave feeling more fulfilled?
Often.
So that's how you quantify it. Put you in a room with somebody who needs help, and you'll 80% of the time come out with more fulfillment. That's what I said, like, that's the missing piece, is you're not feeling the connection. You're all push, 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 and no hug. It's like you need the feeling, because, okay, I had 1,000 Instagram followers, now 2,000 or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't mean enough, because it's a momentary, you cross that number, but there's no heart. The heart is when you're talking, and you're actually very good at it. You say, you're not just all mine. You're great at connecting to people and helping them. You do it naturally. More than anybody on my whole tour. We did it in every city. I went across America. You were like the only guy who didn't talk about himself and like used his time to help the other people. So you're naturally great at it. You're just not putting yourself in the position to do it. And so you can XO quantify it. If you were to twice a week do something with somebody else who needs help, 80% of the time, you're going to come out feeling more fulfilled. Like, I'm kick-ass at what I do. I'm so happy that I had that conversation with that person, because you're actually good at it. And it's like, if you sucked at it, then that might be 25%, but you're actually really good at it. Mm-hmm. So 80, 90% of the time, you're going to come out feeling more fulfilled, which then gives you the courage and the motivation to then stay consistent, because you're all push, but there's no consistency. When you can match the push and the hug, then you'll stay consistent, because you feel that it's fulfilling. If you're not fulfilled, you won't stay consistent. It's just a little thing to chase. Like, oh, I'm going to start and stop and start and stop, right? But if you actually felt fulfilled in the work, like, this is meaningful, this was really cool, I want to do it again, you'll stay more consistent on all the work.
So I probably stopped about 8 months ago, consistently posting or creating or whatever, because I felt like, well, what's the point? Nobody's seeing it, and it's not being done to, and I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
You're going to say,
but even before that, 8 months ago, you stopped before that too.
Yeah.
Over the past 3 years, it's been like 2 months on, 3 months off, 4 months on, 8 months off. It's like, it's just been this constant.
You actually watch that stuff?
Starting stuff. I don't watch all of it, but I try to stay in tune. But what's missing in all of your content is, like, there's never anybody else. It's just you sharing, And your biggest wins are when somebody gives you a good comment. When somebody says, hey, Evan, that was really meaningful, or they give you the $100 thank you or whatever, right? That's like what the $100 meant more to you than getting some deal that might be $1 million, right? It's like somebody valued what I was saying.
Right.
So you need to engineer, and whether that's even getting somebody to help, I might have somebody who might be able to help you, like book guests, but you need to be in positions where you're meeting people, ideally face-to-face, but if not...
And because I haven't had community, that has been a struggle for me on finding the opportunity to talk to people or how to get into groups or events to do it. I have friends that are part of community. They speak on a regular basis, but because I'm not part of that community and those things, that's not really a stage that I can get on. So I do want to get in front of people.
But if it could be, you just have to start doing it. And that path has been done.
I have to find it, or I have to create it somewhere to actually get in front of people face to face. So, but I can't go to the venues where my friends do because I didn't do that program, so I can't go do that. So that's been a challenge for me, is actually finding the venue or the place or the platform to do that. Because if I could do anything, that's what I would be doing.
But how much effort has gone into actually figuring that out?
Right. Not as much as should have.
So, but that's the answer. That's what you do, right? Or you can have your own show, right? Like I have a booker. Like, how did you get here? I didn't ask you to be here. No, I kind of did a little bit. Like, make sure everyone gets a special message. But, but like my team reached out and said, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want to come?
Right.
And when they asked me who to put on, it's like, anybody who's been with Movie Makers for over a year, but make sure you reach out to Evan because he's been asking for this for a while. So let's see if he's available, right? You could have somebody help you, and I have somebody in mind who might be able to help you. But or you have somebody in your team who is booking times for you to meet people and make content.
And I haven't done that to get support with that from content creation, from anything. It's kind of just been.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily need this whole setup, but you could. Like you could do a day a month and film a whole bunch of content and hire a local film crew to come out who's in Pittsburgh and film content with you. And you could hire somebody to book guests for you to come on and like today I don't know what we're talking about. Let's show up, hey man, how can I help? And you give me something and we talk about it. And I'm gonna leave feeling fulfilled. Right?
And I think that's where it comes back to like, well, who am I to do it? And I get it, we've covered it and I understand that.
But you won't even, like that, those kinds of questions pop into your head when you're in your head. Because when somebody's in front of you and you're helping them, you're not thinking, who am I to do this?
Well, I guess it's basically one, you're inviting somebody that either you don't know or you do know, and then to sit down and say, well, how can I help? And if it's somebody that you do know, they're gonna be like, well, I know you can't help me. Or if it's somebody you don't know, it's, well, how are you qualified to help me? So why would I tell you what you can help me with?
But what I'm saying is, when you actually sit down and talk to somebody, how many times do great things come where they're gonna leave having a lesson or action or at least more belief in themselves?
Right.
Like 80% of the time?
Right.
90% of the time? What feels right to you? It's not 20% of the time.
No.
It's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
Right? So all of those thoughts go away when you're just in front of somebody.
So I just got to find ways to get in front of people.
Yeah, and then commit to somebody else. Like you commit to a booker to say, okay, book me somebody to come in. Like I had to show up here because you guys were here and because I got Danny to show up and film. I'm not going to not show up now. Right. What if I can't add value? Oh my God, Evan's coming in from Pittsburgh. Anka's flying in from Dubai to be here. What if I can't help? Yeah. Even if I'm thinking, it doesn't matter because I committed and now we're here. Right? So you just need to commit to having somebody help you find the people, whether you want to do it just at your office in a simple setup or you want to hire a film crew for the day to film with you. But that's the only thing that's missing. And all those thoughts go away. They're all legit. Like, yes, I think those things too. But they all go away once you start talking to them. Once they're in front of you and they say, I don't know how to accept myself. I don't know how to whatever. Then you get into flow state and you're helping them.
It's actually funny because the last 3 weeks I've kind of taken on a new venture with some people business-wise. And I have been so busy I don't even know what's going on in the world. Like I couldn't tell you news, I couldn't tell you anything because the last probably 3 weeks has been nonstop. It's been 14-hour days and 16, whatever. And I love it. And it's amazing because like when you don't have time to think, you just do.
Yeah.
And when I have so many things to do, like I perform better when I don't have time to think. Like I know that, I recognize that because I will overanalyze and it's interesting because from a personality test, my number one trait is I'm a risk taker. Recognition, accolades was number 2, money was number 3. And, but from a business standpoint, I advise people against risk, how to protect themselves and whatever. So and I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I've been so busy that I just haven't had time to think, and the results have been great, and business is great, and income goes up. So to your point of like the activity, when you're doing it, things just continue to happen. So I do understand that, but it's that starting point, and I guess it's that lack of commitment that I've probably had to do it through self-doubt or lack of
honestly,
belief.
in your work, I would say you give people an option and help them protect against the most risk adverse way. Like you give them downside protection, so they can go be risky.
Right.
Because you've helped them solve this.
Right.
I think you actually enable people to live a better life and go chase down their dreams because you've given them this thing that's going to protect them against the worst case scenario.
Right.
So I don't think you're actually teaching people to be risk adverse. You're teaching people how to protect the downside so they can go and live a riskier, happier life, right?
Minimize your loss of risk.
Yeah, so that you can go and go live your life. Yeah, I think all of it goes away when you just are with somebody, and that's been the biggest missing thing over the past 3 years. You won't be, once you're in a conversation, you won't be saying, I don't know if I can help this person, I don't know if I'm good enough. It'll all go away because you're just helping them.
Activity.
Yeah, so you need to, but with somebody. Activity with people who you're helping. So you need somebody, if you're not going to do the work, you need somebody to book people to come on your show or to talk to them and to film it so you have content going up. And you might have anxiety the morning now, like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't believe I have to meet these people. And then you're going to go there, it's going to be amazing. You're going to leave saying, this is the greatest thing ever.
People is what I do.
Yeah.
Like that is.
But all your content is solo.
Right. No, I don't have any hesitation to do it. I don't have any.
You have lots of hesitation to do it.
No, I'm saying like if I had the opportunity to walk on a stage in front of 5,000 people, that wouldn't bother me to do it. Like I don't get gun shy with it. But it's.
That's not even the most meaningful work though.
No, I know, but I'm saying as far as people and talking and speaking, like I don't have any problem with that. It's about figuring out how to actually get in front of the people to do it. And like you said, there's small, local. I haven't put the legwork in to even find the local YMCA
I'm going to connect you to somebody.
Or the local this or local that.
I'm going to connect you to my booker who books people for my shows who might be a fit for you. But I would delegate it to somebody. Because you're going to start looking for different shows, different places to go to, and then you're going to get back into like, who am I going to be here? I didn't go to AA, and then it all dies again. Delegate it to somebody. Just like you hired your trainer to help you with your triathlon, you hire somebody, and that's their focus, to go off and do this thing, to book guests for you to come and coach, to book stages for you to go and speak at, even local, so that it's decided. Like that's the greatest action you can take from this trip is like delegate it to somebody, because you will not stay consistent on it.
Right.
So that has to be somebody else's job, but then they're going to force you to stay consistent because you will not turn down. If you are speaking at this event, you're going to show up. And then you're going to leave super fulfilled, like, this is kick-ass.
It's funny you said that. When I had to rebuild my business and everything, I had to start over solo by myself. And I had to do a lot of the stuff that I hated to do. I'm not a sit-down kind of guy. That's a whole other topic of the medicated, the ADHD and all that stuff, and I had to force myself to do that. And you'd have lazy days and, just not doing what you're supposed to do. And then, when I have a really good assistant now, and she does exactly what you said, like, what's next? And having that person hold you accountable, always having something in front of you. And I'm sure that's why it hasn't worked on the other side too. Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't really have an excuse for that other than just I never have made the time to do it, maybe out of fear that it wouldn't work, or not having full confidence in what the process would be, not being able to control and reverse engineer those numbers, finding myself in more of a place of faith if you will, of that it'll just work, or faith in my own abilities, or maybe it's more of a
But it's all
lack
overthinking.
of belief in my own abilities. Right, and that's what I'm saying. So it's like
You have to give it to somebody.
okay,
Hire somebody. I'll introduce you to somebody, or hire somebody local, or give it to your assistant. Say, I want to be on stages talking about this stuff. I'll speak at schools. I'll speak at YMCA's. I'll speak at Lions clubs. I'll speak at industry associations. I'll speak at anything where I get to come and share my story. And I want to do a show where people come in and I help them, and we're going to film it and make some content, and that's part of the deal.
I guess legacy. I think to sum it up, like if I could do anything, I would like to have a message out there that would help people long after I'm gone. Because I think the problem that I faced and that I went through is never going to go away. I think people are always going to struggle, and it's not about the addiction, the drugs, the alcohol, or whatever somebody might do. It's about the underlying issues that caused and triggered, and that we all have something somewhere. And it's about do you or don't you have the ability to deal with. And some people, they can face adversity and work their way through it, and they have the support systems or whatever. Other people just don't have that, or whatever their demons are, and that's something it's always going to be out there. And I think if I could rid the world of one thing, it would be that, because I know how it feels to feel helpless. You're unintentionally destroying your life, even though you know you're destroying your life. And the very thing you're doing, you think it's making you feel better, but you know it's making you worse, but yet you continue to do it. And it's just a cycle, and you don't think you're ever going to get off of it. And most people just give up. And when you give up, you don't deal with the demons. That's why there's such a high relapse rate, is because people will go detox, will get the medical attention, they'll do whatever, but they don't do that deep psychological work. They don't address the demons. They don't address their vulnerabilities or their insecurities, because in order to do that, you have to admit to yourself that you're not perfect. You have to admit that you're flawed, that you might not have all the answers, that you're not as good as you think or say that you are. And it takes a lot to get to that point. And unfortunately, that's usually the moment of worst. That's where you contemplate the unthinkable, because you just don't see a way out of it. And a lot of people don't get out of that situation. And, I want to leave a legacy of I know it can always be worse, but I think from where I was, the only worse could be is I wouldn't be here, and I know what it's like to destroy everything and to lose everything, and to contemplate that and then decide no, I want to live. And for me personally, from a faith standpoint, this is where I kind of feel empty, is I promised God that if you help me get through this and get healthy, I will spend the rest of my life trying to help other people, either from making the mistakes I made, or that it's possible to rebuild your life after, not in the middle, in whatever way that I can. And I'm not holding up my end of that promise yet. And I feel very hypocritical because of it. So I got my life back, and I'm getting all the spoils and benefits and the fruits of it, but I'm not doing what I said to be able to help other people on the scale that I want to. And that makes me feel very hypocritical, and I haven't been able to figure it out as much as I've wanted to. And I think it's because I still have my own insecurities and my own doubts, my own struggles I have to deal with. I can't get too involved with people because I still have to maintain my own sobriety, and I'm still doing my own therapy and things like that. So I can only take it so far. But that's kind of where I struggle, because it's just, it's individual, but it's collective.
Yeah.
Same, I don't use the word addict because people can get funny about that. It's like alcoholic, and then you have addicts. And I mean, it's one and the same, it's addiction. But, you'll hear the saying same addict, different story. Or different stories, it's kind of like everybody's separate but equal, right? And I mean, that's kind of what I'm going for. Yeah. It bothers me I haven't done it yet.
Well, I think it's a great point to end on, man. Now you got to do the work. Keep that promise.
Thank you.
And go hire that person. To see me coaching another entrepreneur one-on-one, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe. See you there.